Hey everybody, welcome to The Mind Shift. This is a podcast where we discuss living a life without limits. Today is actually not so much a podcast as a solo cast. The team and I at The Mind Shift got together and decided it would be a good idea for me to do a solo cast this time. The holidays are here and we thought it was a good time for me to just share with you some of the greatest insights and lessons that I've had over the 30 plus years that I've engaged in this work and that I've been in my journey, to take some of the most important things and to explore those in this episode, and in the hopes that you will be able to apply them in your life. The holidays are a time where we reflect on the year before that's just gone, with hopefully gratitude and reflection on what's happened for us and what we've achieved, and also of course an opportunity to look at the next year and beyond and say, what do we really want to create with our life and make this coming year the best. It was a bit of a task, I have to say, when I started to write down, take a trip down memory lane and go, what are some of those most important elements or insights or teachings or experiences that I've had. There was a lot, and I thought, okay, well, this is going to be too many. So I've sized it down to 6 to share with you today, 6 really key insights that have helped me to move from a very stuck point to definitely a life without limits when I consider what was going on then. And to be able to just to have so much change and transformation in life. So we'll jump right in. For those of you that aren't aware, if you're new to this podcast or perhaps even the first time, my backstory, to give you an idea of where this is coming from, was started really, before 30 years ago, but just over 30 years ago, I ended up in a very dark state. I was hopelessly addicted to drugs. And I ended up homeless. I was destitute, and probably worse more than anything, I had this internal bankruptcy. Like I had no sense of self-worth, no sense of value, or kind of no sense of what I could do in this life. I didn't feel like there was anything for me to do in this life, and it wasn't going to be a very good one. And my journey really starts at the first time, in that particular time when I was homeless. On the first day, I had a transformational moment, and gives me the first of these insights that I would love to share with you. And it happened for me in a single moment, that at least the epiphany did, but it's been a lifetime of, so far, more than 30 years of seeing how this works, of seeing that once we understand this, what can we do? And that simple teaching or understanding is that anything is possible. And I would add, anything is possible for you. I've heard this so many different times, and I'm sure you have too. There's posters on the wall, there's people all over the place saying anything is possible, anything is possible. But if I'm really being honest and I look out, there's not a whole lot of people doing the anything is possible. We say it, we get like a temporary feel good, oh yeah, anything is possible, but then do we really do it? And what I now know is that from this journey that I've had to date, is that with certain ingredients, with certain things, it does take something to realize the anything that's possible. But I do know now that it's true. And it started for me on that particular day. So that was the first day that I was homeless. I grew up in the U.S. on the southeast coast in a town called Savannah, Georgia. And in those drug addiction years, things got really dark, they got really tough, and with the help of my father, I escaped some things that I really needed to get away from if it wasn't going to implode on me. So my father put me on a bus, bought me a ticket, gave me a little bit of spending money, and I ended up closing my eyes, pointing at a map at the Greyhound bus station in Georgia there, and I pointed to the northwest, which was all the way over across the country, and I had heard of a city called Seattle, Washington, and I just said, I'll go there. So it was 5 days on a bus ride, and when I got there, I had nothing left. I had 2 bags of everything that I owned left. I couldn't carry them around the town because I had nowhere to go. And so I put them in the locker with the last $5 that I had at the Greyhound bus station. Never went back to get them. So that was literally the day when I walked out of that bus station, I had nothing. And I walked out on these streets, and I remember just walking around. I had no idea where to go. I had someone on the bus told me about a homeless shelter that I could go and try to get some help there from, but that was the state that I was in. And as I was walking down one of the streets going into the town looking for this place, I looked up and there were all these skyscrapers around, but I had a kind of a glimpse at a street corner. There was a gap in the buildings, and in the distance I saw the Space Needle. It's called the Seattle Space Needle, or the Space Needle, and I caught a glimpse of it. And for whatever reason, that was the moment that my entire life changed, because from somewhere deep inside, I heard this voice within that was unmistakable. It was quiet, but it was so powerful. And it just cut through everything that I was going through, all the despair I was going through, the fear I was going through. And I simply just heard this internal voice saying, there's an infinite potential for your life, Sridhar, and you're meant to be up there, not down here. And of course, that was metaphorical, but to this day, I still call my pursuit in life my Space Needle life. The life that's up there and full of everything that we desire, and not down in the dumps, which is obviously where I was when I got to Seattle. And in that moment of time, it was like time froze. And I had this glimpse of all the different ways that my life could go. I can still close my eyes and see it. It was like this myriad of limitless possibilities for my life. And I saw or several where I was continued on the path that I was on, and it ended very, grisly and nasty, and it wasn't nice. And I saw a life full of success and full of fulfillment and full of all the things that I would love and could dream of. And I knew in that moment, I just had a knowing that any of those possibilities were available to me. And I just had to make a choice of where I wanted to go. And it was that day that I made a choice that I was going to live that Space Needle life. I was going to live my best life. And it took me a little while after that to get off the drugs, to get some help, and to start changing my life. But today, when I look at what's happened, if you're new to the work or that I do or the podcast, today I have an amazing life that I absolutely love. I have quite a successful business here, if you want to call it that, or successful work where I work with, so many people. I've got to work with thousands of people over the years, including some of the most successful people in the world that now come here and say, hey, I want to learn from some of the things that you've got, and I just get to work with amazing people. I have a wonderful marriage that's nearing on 25 years now. My financial life has been transformed. And, I'd say the most important thing is that I feel really good in life, and I feel fulfilled. And I love my life. I can't wait to get up in the morning, and I can't say that just over 30 years ago. Life was a dread, and I just didn't see any possibility for it. So when I say that anything is possible, I now know that to be true. And I hope on this podcast that I can share a little of the experiences that I've had, even some of the experiences with people that I've worked with, to demonstrate how that's true. And what happened in that moment, firstly, was at that Space Needle, something just changed in me, and my pursuit changed. And it's the first thing that I would share is, I would hope that if you're not already, get really, really clear on the pursuit that you would love to go for. And I know sometimes, it feels like we're not at a place where we can do that, but I'm here to say it doesn't matter where we're starting from. I mean, where I was starting from that day, it was the lowest of the low, and I literally had nothing. So if I can go from that to what life is like today and all the promise of the future that's still happening and unfolding, then there's no one that can't get on your path to your anything is possible. And what I did that day was I just made a decision. I was given the opportunity. It came from within me. I've had many people, reinforce and reiterate that and help me along that pathway. But if it's not happening from within you, I hope that this is the thing that you will hear today, that anything is possible for your life. And I'm just going to pause and I'm going to say it again. Anything, and I mean anything, is possible for you and your life. And you just need to make a decision. You just need to get in here to cut through all the noise, to cut through all the voices in the mind that tell you otherwise, and give yourself the honor and the ability, by connecting with your own heart, with your own truth, and figure out what it is that you'd love to do with your life. Where do you want to be? What kind of success and fulfillment do you want to have? And it doesn't matter what it looks like. For me, it was a gift that day. I could see the future, some things about the future. I could see being successful in a business kind of thing. I could see doing this type of work. I even saw it at that point. I wanted to help other people. I even knew that then. And I had no idea how I was going to get there. Absolutely none. But I just knew that that's what I was going to do. And that's what we need to find. We need to find that knowing, that certainty within ourselves. And other people can tell us there's messaging out there. There's this podcast that you can listen to. There's guests that come on this podcast and share time after time how they're breaking through limitations and getting where they want to go in life. And I just look at that journey. I know that from getting clear on that, I knew that I just had to make a choice of where I wanted to go. And then it's so fascinating who turned up, the opportunities that turned up, the most amazing people that started to get on my side. My first teacher, who I'll share a little bit more about soon. And then the direction, how I just got guided in what to do, go back to university and then do this course and then study that and do this, pursue this for a living and go and see this teacher because they have something really great to say. And my life has been an unfolding. And as long as I stay on that connection with anything as possible, and I don't let the voices in my mind take me out of that, then I keep finding that person after person shows up to help me. Thing after thing, opportunity after opportunity helps me on my way. And it's been long enough now to know that that's not a coincidence, it's a regular occurrence. So whatever you might be, you might already be successful, but you have bigger dreams, and you have bigger dreams. Or you might just be like I was, going, you don't feel that there's possibility for life, or you don't feel that you're worthy, or that you're capable. But I'm here to tell you that is just simply not true. You are not given something, a way that we can say it is if you can conceive it, then you can achieve it. I'll say that again. If you can conceive it, you can achieve it. Like, it's just so true. I remember hearing that years ago, and I thought, wow, that really resonated with me, and I now know that it's true. If you can think of something that you love, and it doesn't matter if it's work or business or some kind of work thing, or if it's money, or if it's a relationship, or some kind of amazing parenting that you want to do, if it's a health outcome that you'd love to have, you can do it. And I now know, looking back on all the work that I've done with people over the years, how many amazing things that people have done. They've showed up to the work having relationships that were just never going to work again, but they didn't want to give up on them. And then once they get clear that anything is possible and they get committed to that, I've seen them turn that around. I've seen people turn health conditions around. Some of them have come on the podcast and shared some of the health turnarounds that they've had by connecting with that anything is possible and that going forward from that place, not from the place of, oh, I can't do it, and getting filled with that. So once we start changing our mind, once we start understanding anything is possible and deciding that that's the way that we're going to go, then the whole world does become available to us. And so that is my first message is anything is possible. And my challenge for you over the holidays or whenever you want to do this is if you knew that absolutely anything is possible. By the way, let me say this because it's coming to mind. If you look at some of the things in the world, some of the naysayers that people say, no, you can't do that, you can't build that, you can't create that, the greatest inventions we have, from cars to airplanes to space shuttles to, who knows, like everything, technology, all these different things that people could, so many people along the way said that will never work. You'll never put a computer in everybody's home. That can't work because computers were these massive mainframes back in the day. But there were people that didn't listen to that, and they knew that anything was possible, and they kept the strength going and got support, and until anything is possible has happened. So if they can do it, you can do it. That's just the bottom line. If they can do it, you can do it. So anything is possible, and my challenge to you would be first to look at, if you knew that and you took a quiet moment and you knew that anything was possible, what would your anything be? I would encourage you right now, pause this if you need to, write it down. Write it down right now. What my anything is possible. And don't let fear stop you from writing it. I understand the fears will come up. We'll discuss that in a little bit. But write it down. do yourself the honor of writing it down and looking at it and connecting, because there's something special with that. When you connect with that, anything is possible. And what that looks like for you, it's a special moment. And my encouragement is that you nurture that and you go forward, you take it forward in your life. The second insight for living a life without limits is to find your own truth. It's like to find who you are. Maybe I had a bit of an advantage in this regard because I grew up in the US, in a Western country, to Indian parents. Both my parents were, immigrated from India to America. And, I grew up in quite a traditional household in some ways. It was like the kind of mixing the traditional Indian lifestyle with contemporary America, back in the 60s and 70s, which was quite a time back then, a Renaissance time, if you will. And I grew up really confused as to who I was. I remember one time when I went back to India to just travel and visit my country, where my heritage, and someone asked me, who are you? When you say, like, they were asking, like, are you an American? Are you an Indian? And I just said, well, it's a really good question, and part of my reason for coming here is to discover that. And I'm not just saying that who we are we're defined by our race or by our family or by our heritage, but it led me to a deeper question. Who am I? We get so many messages in life of what we should be doing. What's the right thing to do? What's the wrong thing to do? How should we live? And many of those people are really well-intentioned. I think they have good intentions when they say that. Some of these are family members, parents, but at the end of the day, I can only share what I've learned. And what I've learned is, as well-intentioned as they are, they don't know who we are. Only we can do the digging inside to uncover who we are. And what I would say as a very, very important insight is that every single one of us are unique. There's not one way to go through this life. There's just your way. One of my favorite songs is I Did It My Way by Frank Sinatra, because it's if you take the depth of that understanding, life is meant to be lived your way. And what does that look like? It looks like discovering your own truth. And I'm going to be honest, it's not the easiest pursuit. We got to hold up a mirror. We have to really discern between all these voices that we've heard telling us what we should be doing with our life and how to live it. But here's something that I've learned, and I want to highlight this moment, and that is your truth isn't in anyone else. It's not in a book. It's not in someone else. It's inside you. And that's something I feel incredibly fortunate to be forced to go down that road. Because if I was going to have my life turn around, I needed to, by necessity, discover who I was and find the strength that was there to take me past all the limiting constructs that I had in my mind. And I'm just super grateful that I took the opportunity to do that. Or in my case, forced to do that. So it's to look within, to have the courage to say, okay, I can learn from people out there. But at the end of the day, no one can tell me how to live my life, because only I'm here to live my life. Only I know what's inside of me. Only my own heart tells me what I stand for and what I'm dedicated to and what I would love my life to be. And so I would encourage you to find your truth. Yes, learn from other people, but don't be limited by those teachings. When people come to do work with me, I say the same thing to them. Some of them will ask me, oh, what do you think I should do? And I'm like, I can't tell you that. I can help you to discover that within yourself. And that's what we do here. I can help you to discover that within yourself. I've learned questions. I've learned how to look at things to help you get to the heart of you, who you are. And that's the only job that I can do, because no one has the wisdom for your life except you. And I would say to have the courage, one of the greatest insights. I've got these insights today down to 6. If there were 6 things that you could do that I would love to share with you that can make a difference in your life and help you live a life without limits, that's one of them. It's a crucial one. And it's just so important. As part of that, what I would suggest is to what I've learned, and I would suggest, is to choose fulfillment over success. When I grew up, and again, everybody's well-intentioned, but it's like, to get through life, be successful. You want to be successful. You want to be the greatest at your work, or you want to be, whatever it is that you do, you want to be successful. And so we're all chasing the success. But I've now learned, because I work with some of the most successful people, and I have for quite a long time, it's an interesting insight that I'm trying to think in the past, like no one is actually happy or fulfilled with that success. That's why they come and they say, well, look, I'm really successful, but something's missing. And the something that's missing is fulfillment. And I've worked with people over a long period of time now, and first, I'm my first client, so to speak. I'm the first one on the list to say, I want to be fulfilled in my life, and what does that look like? And all the time during these 30 years, I'm doing this work for close to 30 years now, I've always sought fulfillment over success. And what I can say is that when you go for fulfillment over success, you'll get more success than you can imagine. You'll get way more than if you just chase success, but you'll be happy. You'll make use of this life. It's a little bit of a heavy thing to say sometimes, but one day it's all done. We get one shot at it, and one day it's done. And for me, something that I've learned and that I would love to pass on is that fulfillment is the best pursuit that we can have. And we know that we're fulfilled when we feel it in here. It's not just incessantly chasing people to admire us or to like us. If we look at some of the most popular things, like movie stars and singers and people, public figures that have the greatest admiration, and they have from the outside they have everything. But if you look under the bonnet or under the hood, as we say in America, you'll see depression, you'll see unhappiness, you'll see lack of fulfillment, because those things on the outside don't fulfill us up on the inside. And what we need to do to that I can see in my experience, what we need to do to get past that is to just, again, go within, really get clear. You know what? This is my life. I'm here to love it. What does that look like for me? What's my pursuit? And just don't let anyone, including yourself, take you from that. Once you find out what that is, then pursue it. Again, I go back to number one here, which is if you can conceive it, then there's no way you can't achieve it. You just need to stay dedicated to that pursuit. And that would be one of the most important things. If we want to blossom our real potential, our unlimited self, then it has to be genuine. It's got to be who we are. And so it's a big one for me. I mean, for any of you that are watching this that have done some work with me, you will know how big I am on being genuine, because it's everything. If we're not genuine, there won't be fulfillment. If we are genuine, we'll be much more fulfilled in life, and we will find that the number of successful people I've had come back and say, well, I'm really surprised by this. You said it to me, Sridhar, but it's true. When I go for fulfillment and I really get connected and I let all that stuff go, my success is going through the roof. Again, some of the people on earlier podcasts have shared that story. So that's the first two. Just understanding you're limitless, right? You literally are. You don't have limitations except for the ones that you think you've got. And I know sometimes that can go deep, and they can seem real. That fear can feel real. Those limiting beliefs can feel real, but they aren't. They aren't. When I believed in them, it got me to where it got me. I believed other people were better than me. I didn't have much value in life, and I shared with you where that took me. But all of that was based on something that I made up when I was a kid and when I was young. And it was, that somebody else was worthy, not me. Somebody else was wanted, not me. And it just simply wasn't true. And when I believed it and it just kept reciprocating in my internal mind, then I lived out that reality, and it wasn't a nice place. And the moment that I opened up to anything is possible, I wish I could just take out the last 30 years of experience and show you the unfolding, but I can only do it in bit by bit. But all I can say is the number of different ways that my life has changed, the most amazing things that just keep happening, the people I've met, the absolutely incredible teachers, the people that are in my life, the people I get to work with, the opportunities I get, the lifestyle I get to live, everything has changed. And so anything is possible. And then the second is, in order to achieve that anything, then it has to be real to you. So I would encourage you to really dig in and find out what's real for you. Again, it can take some work, but what do you want in this life? What is your inspiration? What do you want to go for? Set fear aside. If you want an exercise, set fear aside and write it down. and say, this is what I'm going to go for. It'll bolster you just to see that, and it'll give you confidence and courage. And I would encourage you to nurture that courage, to get supportive people, podcasts or books or people in your life to help you nurture that tiny flame. And as the saying goes, it will turn into a roaring fire if you don't give up on it. So number 3 of these 6 insights that I'd love to share with you, the most important insights of my life, when I really boiled it down, is be open and ask for help. When I was coming up, there was this kind of feeling that I needed to be right, and I didn't want to be vulnerable. I didn't want to look stupid. I wanted to look like I had it all together. That's where, I learned men were supposed to do. I think women, it's the same for you, but in a bit of a different way. You have to look a certain way and you have to act a certain way. There's all these messages that we get. And it just made me closed. It made me feel like I had to know everything. But I didn't know anything. I knew enough to get me on the streets homeless and destitute. And, you don't have to be there. But I think if you look at what we know has got us as far as we are. And in the long time that I've been doing this work, what I have discovered is that people want to be a lot farther than that. There's more that you want to do with your life. And I would encourage you, once you find out what it is, seek people out. Be open. I've done a lot of this work, and people come and say, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? But I'm more open today than I ever was, because I know that the more that I go, the more there is to learn. The more that I find out, the more that I learn that I don't know hardly anything, and the more there is to find out. And that's a great frame of mind to come from. It's one that I would highly suggest, is to be open and don't be afraid to ask for help. Ask. I'm thinking now about some of the amazing teachers that I've had in my life. That's how I've got to where I am. When I found somebody who had some knowledge or some experience that I wanted to learn from, or that something that emulated something that I wanted, they'll tell you. Sridhar would just keep asking and asking and asking. I would just, I'd kind of maybe apologies to them, but I would badger them because I wanted to know. And, there's a way to get to where you want to get to, and other people have done it or parts of it. Seek them out and ask them. And in many ways that will help, because it'll give you the knowledge. It'll give you people at the level that you want to be in that are actually giving you the information that you need from experience. And it's just something incredibly valuable. So the third really key insight for me, I've broken down the 6 things that will lead you to that have, in my experience, led me to thus far a life without limits, and I'm still on that journey. And so I'm passing that on to you so that you can do the same. The next one is really interesting, and it's just something that no list I could do would be complete without it. And that is that perception is everything. And that's true on so many different levels. The way that we perceive the world is the way that it shows up for us. But if I look out in the world, I see people living in a world where anything is possible for them, and they just go for their dreams. We look at all these people and say, well, they're lucky, but they weren't lucky. They just perceive a world consciously and unconsciously where they can achieve everything that they want to. And there's a whole slew of people, unfortunately it occurs to me that it's the majority, that have some sort of limitation. We live in a world of limitation. The economy's not good enough for me to do what, it's not right for me to do what I want. Oh, that person's not really going to like me. So I'm not going to bother pursuing any kind of relationship with them because I don't have X, Y, Z, that I need to do that. Or any number, I'm too old, I'm too young. There's just so many different reasons that we don't believe that we can do things. But all of those are just perception. One to share is that when I grew up, I've shared the story when I do public talks and that kind of thing, that I have a brother. And growing up, he's a few years older than me, and he was quite a superstar academically, very bright guy. And my family was very much about education, study, grades. And my brother was just amazing at it. Like, he just, right from the start, he excelled. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was about 4 or 5 years behind him, 4.5 years. And I kind of felt intimidated by that. I didn't even know, but I was like, well, he's already done it. There's no way for me to do better than that. And I just shut down from a very young age. And, it's what the family really valued. And I decided very young that because my brother would get, I look at him and he's doing well, and he was, he would get a lot of what I call positive attention. And I got the opposite because I went in a different direction. I thought, well, I can't do that. Let me just find my own way. And in those early days, I didn't have any way. So I just did things to get attention, like act up. And, I went down different tracks that my parents just didn't, it just probably didn't understand, or it just wasn't in their priority system. And so I got things like, why can't you be more like him? And I interpreted that to mean they don't love me, they don't want me. And if you can remember being a child, or you have one, or have had a younger child at some point, even if they're grown up now, it was painful. It was that pain that when I got to be just turned a teenager in 13 when I tried my first drug, that was all the pain that was in me, that when I tried that drug, it got numbed for the first time that I can remember, which is why I was off to the races. And so I grew up believing for a number of years and decades that my family just didn't love me. My parents didn't love me. They didn't want me. And I looked at that perception. That perception really cost me. It cost me my happiness. It cost me everything. And it cost me my self-propulsion, my feelings of self-worth. And when I looked back, and I am so thankful I have worked to investigate perceptions and find out, what's true about them and what's not true about them. So I did some deep work on that as part of the turnaround. And I realized, I woke up to, it wasn't never that they didn't love me. That was just such a farce. And it was, what was happening, and I learned was, in fact, they loved me so much, they were just worried for me. And they didn't know how to express it because they were panicking at the time. Their son, they went from India to America, they watched their son getting caught up in exactly the opposite of what they had hoped. And they were really worried. And when I look back, they had reason to be. But I didn't see it at the time. And so I grew up with this story. And when I changed those perceptions, and I also changed the perceptions of that I didn't have value, I started to own my own value. I started to own who these people were in my life, how much they stuck by me. And no matter how much I went off the rails, they were there to support me in my times of need. And I started to realize I just created this whole story. And I now know, after, over 30,000 consultations that I've done now with people across all walks of life, none of these stories turn out to be true. They're just perceptions that we make up. So that has to be one of the key insights that I would have to share in boiling it down, is if something is limiting you, I'm all about, as you would know by now, living an unlimited life. Living a life without limits, going for everything that you want, and living a life that you absolutely love and dream about every day, and making your dream your reality. And the only thing that stops us, and I really, really mean this, seriously mean it. It's not a poster on the wall. I'm not exaggerating. I've now found it to be true, and I have enough experience to be able to say it. The only thing that ever stops us is a limiting perception. It's the way that we view things. And my strong encouragement, if you want to live a life beyond limits, is to find a way, ask me if you want to know, find a way to get past those so that you can start deeply seeing things differently and waking up to the world, I say now, the world that really is. A world that is full of infinite possibility for all of us, waiting for us to go down that track. One of the key things that I've learned is that all my life, and I had a lot of suffering for a lot of years, all of my life, all of that suffering was caused by me. I was blamed for my mind and what I was thinking and believing. I blamed everyone else for it. My whole life I blamed everybody else. And I know that for some of you, some real things have happened in your past. I do understand that. Some of us have gone through some real traumatic situations. But I've learned now, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that it's not what happened to us that's limiting us. It's what we're still carrying around from it. And we're only carrying that around in our own minds, our own limitations that we took on. So shifting your perceptions, right? Shifting our perceptions has to be one of the most important keys that we can have insights or turnarounds to move into our life beyond limits, and one that's just really, really fulfilling, where nothing is stopping us. And when those limiting beliefs come up, we just deal with them. We know that they're not, no need to believe them. They're not true. We get past them and we keep moving forward on our journey of living our greatest life and achieving what we came here to do. It does remind me, one of the things that really moved me early on in the work was when someone introduced me to the understanding of the 5 regrets of the dying. It was a book that was written in a whole construct where this palliative care nurse named Bronnie Ware interviewed people. She was in like a hospice situation, or in the last 12 weeks of life with terminally ill patients. And she asked them the question, what do you regret most in your life? And they just regretted not living a life that they came to live. They didn't live a life that was true to them. And I thought, how horrible would that be? I was so grateful to these people for the courage to share that, because I said, you know what, that's not going to be me, and I'm going to help as many people as I can get to the opposite of that, because I just couldn't imagine it. Still to this day, I can't imagine getting to the end saying, I missed it. You know, this was my one opportunity and I missed it. I didn't do what I came here to do. And that in and of itself is just such an important insight, to just go for your life. And number 4 has to do with the only thing that's limiting us. Because many people should say, we give up, we don't do it, right? We don't do it. And I have to input this. I made this a separate one. I was going to have 7, but I thought, no, I could just fit this in here, so I'm glad it's come back to mind. If we're going to achieve our anything, we have to find something that we're just not going to give up on. You know, as part of finding that truth that we talked about earlier in number 2, insight number 2, find that something that there's no way for you to give up on. You know, this past few years, I've had a few years, it started to change a while ago. I went through the greatest challenge period I've had since I started this work over this journey over 30 years ago. I had the most difficult period of time for a while, and it just seemed like nothing I was doing was cracking me through. And this particular very important aspect in my life, and man, everything in me I just wanted to give up. Like every sensible part of myself was saying, just give it up, right? But I found something that's so important to me, it wasn't an option to give up. And that in itself is an insight. You know, find something that's so truly important to you. It's not important to anybody else maybe, but it's important to you. And it's so important to you that nothing is going to stop you. Nothing is going to make you give up on it. And that's a key in and of itself, but that's part of that perception and that connecting with who you are. So perception is everything, and I would recommend that you just start working with your mind and start creating more fulfilling, more conducive perceptions in your life that lead you on a path of fulfillment, and not on a path of limitation, and not on a path of giving up, and not on a path of fear and misery. You know, there's so much of that out in the world. You know, everything is being fearful, but that's only a world that people are constructing. That's not the world we actually live in. It looks like a world that we live in because so many people buy into it. But it's one of the reasons for this podcast is for those of you that want to move beyond limits and live your life beyond limits. Change the channel. You know, literally my recommendation would be change the channel. That's what I did. I filled my life up with amazing people, amazing teachers that I just couldn't get enough of. And, you know, whether it was books, whether it was podcasts like this one, and I just kept turning that on instead. And if it came to fear, I still don't do it to this day. All the fear-mongering stuff that's out there, you know, people say, oh, don't you need to watch the news? Absolutely not. I found out everything I need to, and I feel so much better. I don't get a daily dose of depression coming my way and fear. You know, I don't get that, and I don't need it. And it turns out that, you know, the things that I have filled my life up with have led me down a whole different path that I would never trade for anything. So to recap number 4, it's perception is absolutely everything. And if your perceptions aren't suiting you, then change them. You can always change your perception. We can't change the past. If something happened to us, we can't change that. But we can definitely change how we view it. And we can definitely change how we view our future, how we view ourselves, and how we view our opportunities in life. Along that line, another really major thing that I've discovered along the way is that, and this is a big one, might be one that takes a little bit to unpack, and that is life is actually happening for us, not to us. For so many years and even decades of my life, I believed everything was happening to me. My upbringing happened to me. Bad things happened to me. Everything was always happening to me. And I'm so thankful I've had a number of different teachers in my life now point me in this direction in different ways. But whatever the case might be, I'm certain about it now because I've now looked at all those, I do things like go back in my past, find all the things that I think were bad or failures or, just things that didn't go well, traumatic experiences, and I dig and dig until I find the hidden blessings, the hidden opportunities in them to see why they were actually happening for me. We don't live in an isolated world. We're not alone. It's one of the big things to share. I've discovered in the time that I've done this work with myself and with so many other people, we don't sometimes live in the world we might think we live in. We're not alone. Like the world is actually helping us if we open our eyes and open our minds and learn to shift our perception to ask, why is this thing happening for me and not to me? And we ask that question in earnest, we will find the answer. A great case in point for me was my addiction. Sometimes people say, well, Sridhar, you talk about your addiction and homelessness. It was a very dark period. I had some things happen in my life, I guess you could say to me or for me as it is, but to me that I wouldn't wish on anyone during that period of time. But I now look back and people say, well, why do you talk about it so freely? And, you talk about it as if it was, why aren't you ashamed of it? And I go, absolutely not. I've worked with people throughout, I've been so fortunate to work with people in all different manners, people that have gone through all different things in their life, and some people have gone through some serious things. But something people have always said to me is, I don't feel like you're judging me. I don't feel like you're talking down to me. I said, well, it's one of the reasons I share my story. How can I? I mean, you hear where my life has gone. How can I judge anyone? And I don't. I just know what it feels like. And that period of addiction has shown me, it can help me to relate and connect with people no matter what they're going through. And it also woke me up. Without that, I probably just would have gone through life never really digging deep, never inquiring, never thinking to find out who I was. I probably just lived this kind of really surface life, and it would have been infinitely less fulfilling. So your past doesn't have to define you. And it does define us, but not in a negative way. If we actually go back, I have a habit of it now, and I recommend it. When something happens, I've had an interesting year this past year with a lot of different challenges. I looked at each one, and I thought, okay, well, why is that one happening for me? Why is this one happening for me? And as the answers get revealed, or I see what they are, that becomes fuel, added fuel and momentum for creating the life that I'd really love to live. It wasn't a barrier at all. It was exactly what I needed to be able to continue to move forward, to ask the questions I needed to ask, to learn the information I needed to learn, to get inspired to go into a direction to find these things out. So things are happening. One of the key insights that I've had is things are happening for us, not to us. And I would strongly encourage that if you want to use this one, don't just do it on a surface level. I know people used to say to me, oh, everything happens for a reason. That never really, it was like a little bit, okay, I get it, maybe feel a tiny bit better, but it wasn't until I saw what the reasons were, to dig in and do the work of what are the reasons? What are the reasons that happened for me? What opportunities does that open up? What insights does that give me? And once we find those, it's actually a transformation. It takes something that was blocking us and turns it into the new tunnel or the new pathway to go through to a greater existence, to a greater realm of our possibilities. So that's got to be one of them, to stop seeing life as something that happens to us and start just connecting with this amazing world that we live in. Sometimes people find this one a bit hard to get, but if you think about it, there's times where we think of somebody and then they show up. or we you want to do something, and then that opportunity opens up. Those aren't coincidences. If you actually look back at your life, you'll see that you actually have a power. That when you get really, we're about to talk about this more deeply in a moment, but you have a power about you. That when you get really, when you connect with it and you start seeing things, you start getting grateful for the things that happen in your life and not see them as bad, but find out why they're great for you and get grateful for them. It opens up doors. It literally opens up opportunities. So number 5 is, of insights, the most important insights of my life, number 5 is discovering that everything is happening for us and not to us, and utilizing that to keep propelling forward no matter what happens in life and not getting stuck. Mixed with the perceptions one, changing those perceptions and then seeing why it's happening for us, nothing will ever stop you if you do those things. I can really promise you this. Nothing will ever stop you in any pursuit if you consistently do those 2 things. And it's a great segue for the last one. It's last but certainly not least, and that is the power of commitment and courage. Have to be there in any kind of major insights. Most important insights is the power of commitment and courage. It's a story that's close to my heart. My first mentor, who was there, he helped me get off the streets. He helped me when I had absolutely no sense of self-worth, and he just helped me. He believed in me so strongly that I began to believe in who I was based on his belief, and it rubbed off on me. And he sadly died a few years into our relationship. My whole life had changed by that time. I went from being addicted to drugs and homeless on the streets to graduating with honors from university. When he died, one of the last things he did was to come to my graduation. And I know I don't not give myself credit for the work I put in to have that achievement, but without him, without Robert, it just never would have happened. And no way. And when the last thing that he actually gave me was a quote. It was a beautiful, this was at my graduation, he gave me a framed copy of a quote by a philosopher named Goethe, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. And it's about the power of commitment. And it basically says that, there's one thing more than anything that stops us from living our dreams. And it's a failure to realize that the moment we truly commit ourselves, then the entire universe moves too. And he goes on to explain that the moment we truly commit to something, all manner of unforeseen circumstances, material assistance, chance meetings occur and rise in the favor of the one that's committed. In other words, everything that we need comes to us, or we find it when we've made a commitment to doing something. But it has to be an unfailing commitment. One of the famous lines from that is, boldness has genius, magic, and power in it. Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it now. I've had that frame copy. I'm in my office now and I'm looking at it. It's a frame copy of that this entire time, ever since then, for 30 years, and I've never forgotten it, and I've seen the power in it. That when we truly commit to something, everything happens for us to be able to do it. Every single thing happens for us to be able to do it. So it's the power of commitment, but we can't fake that. We can't just go, yeah, I commit to that, I commit to that. It's got to be an unfailing, I'm committing to this. I am certain of it. I have no idea how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. My first experience of that was way back at the Space Needle back in 1991. And the number of things, I would need to hold probably 10 podcasts to share with you how I've utilized that understanding to create thing after thing after thing after thing in my life. And I've shared that with so many of the people I've worked with, and they've come back, just about all of them. So can I have a copy of that quote? Because they do the same. So commit to something, right? You're not here to waffle in life. You're here to do something great. It could be build a great business, or make some sort of difference in your job. It could be to create a fortune, to live the best life, or to even help other people maybe with it as well, to have experiences, to enjoy great health, or whatever the case might be, to get the most out of connected relationships, whether it be a special intimate relationship or family relationships or friendships. It could be spiritual adventure or spiritual awakening in your own life. It could be mental growth in your life, mastering some sort of something that's here for us to master, for us to learn about. There's so many different pursuits. And I can guarantee you, there's so many people that come to me and say, well, I don't really have anything. So you know what? That's just simply not true. And I would encourage you to stop lying to yourself. And I don't mean that in the sense of they're consciously lying to themselves. They're just without knowing it, out of fear, they're not doing the work of connecting with what that really is. Fear is quite a strong pull. Like we don't want to fail, we don't want to lose things. We don't want to lose the love of people and all this kind of stuff. So our answer is, I'm not going to pursue my most greatest pursuits in life. That's the worst thing that we can do, because you end up, all those things that you were worried about losing, you lost them within yourself. We lose them within ourselves. And so I would encourage you to again, if we're putting some of these together, there is overlap in these 6 insights. Is to find what you love to do and then just wholeheartedly commit to it. Or whatever you can even conceive of now, wholeheartedly commit to it. And the last but absolutely not least is to have courage. When I see people, I studied a lot of successful people in my life because I wanted to learn about success. And so I studied the most successful people across all the different arenas. And I know in my own life now, what distinguishes people that do from those that don't is they have the courage. Once they get clear about what they want and they commit to it, they have the courage to do what comes up. When I'll say it again, that once we know what we want to do, we get messages, like internal messages, like we'll get guided. Somebody will say something to us. We'll get a feeling. We have a knowing of what there is to do. But so many people, out of fear, don't do those things. They don't take that step. Maybe they're fearing they're going to fail. Maybe they're fearing they're not smart enough, or whatever the case might be, so they don't do it. But all great pathways are filled with things not working out. We call it failure. I don't even believe in the word anymore. Failure just means something didn't work out. Well, keep going, and then it will. Life is that way. A lot of the time things don't work out, and a lot of times they do. And if we don't get stopped by the times they don't work out, we keep going, then we'll get the prize. Like it's just the way it works. And if you hear everyone that's had some success or great success, that's what they'll tell you. They didn't give up. And it takes courage. It takes courage to keep going. It takes courage to do that thing. This is where the people I work with just endlessly uplift my own heart when I watch them day after day have the courage to do something that they didn't do before, or have the courage to do something that's along the line of their dream. And I watch the magic that opens up. I watch how their lives just go to whole entirely different realms. And I just can't suggest it enough that it's having courage. Follow through. I think if you ask this question, one of the questions I ask in the work is, what's the worst thing that can happen? And actually go to the worst thing that can happen and ask yourself, well, am I still okay if that happens? And you'll find out that you are. And then if you ask yourself, well, what am I going to do after that? You go, oh, I'll just keep going. And you go, oh, and then I'll get it. So fear stops us in our tracks, but it doesn't need to. And most fears never come true. I think you've probably seen that in your own life. But even if they do, you're still okay, and you will still go forward, and you'll eventually get the prize. It's reminding me, it's a probably great way to end, this quote from Michael Jordan, the great basketball player, when he was asked about success and how he got to be so successful. And he said, well, hold on, right? I've missed, thousands of shots. I think it was 26 times he was trusted to take the game-winning shot, and he missed it. And he said, I fail over and over again, and that's why I succeed. They come in pairs. And if we have the courage to keep going, and we have the courage to take that next step, and we have that commitment, then that's where anything becomes possible. And your dream, where we talk about anything as possible and you're looking at it, actually becomes your reality. I've watched thing after thing in my own life become my reality. I'm still going. I've got lots more to do. And I've seen so many other people. I have such a great job. I get to watch people do this every day and go to a new realm of what possibilities there are and watch them get more fulfilled. So those are the 6 things for me. My whole dedication in life is to connect with who we really are and to live a life without limits. That's what I've been dedicated to for ages. That's what this podcast is about. It's what all of my work is about. It's really what my life is about. And these are the 6 things that I'd say if you can do these things, just know anything is possible. Live your own truth, find your truth and live it. Connect to who you are. Seek fulfillment over success. Ask for help, but stay open. We can always learn more. Stay open and ask for help. Realize that your perceptions are the only thing stopping you, and you can change those. So, life is happening for us, not to us. Sorry, I had 6. I had to remember that. Life is happening for us and not to us. This is just such a big one. Start turning things around. When something happens in your life, don't get stopped by it. Ask how it's on the way and keep asking until you find it. And then the power of commitment, truly finding what you want to commit to, and then having the courage. Follow a pathway of courage. The pathway of commitment and courage opens all doors in your life. I will promise you that. So as always, I want to thank you for listening in. I didn't know how long this was going to be. I think we've gone just about an hour, but I hope that there's that's my own open heart there for you. It's been 30 years of experience to share these things with you. Again, I really honed in on what did I feel the most important things were. I hope this might be one that you've taken some notes, or maybe go back and listen and take a few notes, because all I know for me is that it's changed everything about my life, absolutely everything. And from the people that I've worked with over the years, I know that it's done that for, when they've applied it to themselves, it's done that for them as well. So as always, thank you for watching this podcast. We're going to come back in the new year with more amazing guests and more people sharing some of the insights that they've got and ways that you can live your life without limits. So wish you the best of the end of the year and a happy new year, happy holidays to you. And I hope your 2026 and beyond is everything that you want and beyond limits. And I look forward to seeing you then and on the next episode of The Mind Shift.